Okay, welcome to the first go-to session of the month. This is the first of 4 sessions we're going to hold, okay? This first one is largely going to be over introductory material, but I'm also going to cover this week's main assignments. There are 2 of them, graded assignments, that is, a 5% discussion activity and a 10% presentation analysis activity. So don't worry, we're going to take a look at both of those assignments, and I'll explain what you need to do and what's expected and everything. Now, these sessions are recorded, so for the people who are here live, that's great. In the future, though, if you can't make a session, keep in mind that they're always recorded, and then I'll just upload the link to the FSO platform. And that way, everybody gets a chance to view the material. This won't make much sense to people who are watching this session, so I'll try to keep this really brief. But to those who are here live, yeah, there's a problem with the chats. I have all the settings set correctly, but you can't see each other's comments, right? Like I have a bunch of people making comments, but probably you can't see them because everything's going to organizers, which is me. I'm the organizer of this session. We'll just deal with it. I'm getting a new MacBook, yay, probably at the end of this week, and that will probably take care of lots of these problems. But for now, just feel free to make comments, ask questions in the chat. I'll read them out loud. I have to anyway, because the people who watch this session in video form can't see the control panel in the chat window. All that is blocked during the recording, or I should say invisible. So yeah, I'll just read your question out loud so everybody can see what's being posted, okay? So let's move forward. Let me begin with some really quick kind of like housekeeping stuff. And actually just one kind of keynote I want to make. Hopefully everybody's been making their way through all these welcome and introductory materials. If you go through these one at a time and truly spend time reading them, you'll be brought up to speed. None of this stuff is terribly difficult, but it is important. I do want to make a quick question about messages, though, okay? This is probably for all of you, your first month here at Full Sail, which is awesome because I love teaching people who are here brand new. New students are super excited. They put a lot of energy into the class, and that's great. Believe me, I'm not complaining. I think it's terrific. Ask any questions you might have, because people view me as their first point of contact, which is perfectly okay. But the quickest way to get in touch with me is to use this envelope icon, okay? Anytime you use this to send a message, my icon lights up like it has right now. And boom, I can see, like Martin, who's here with us today. Looks like you sent me a message. I have to still read that. But yeah, that's where you contact me directly. You've probably noticed that for any of these activities, you have the ability to leave comments, which is fine too, but I have to hunt for those because those don't get sent here. Okay, they get sent here. This little bell is my notifications area, and I get a notification every time you do something. You post to the discussion board, I get a notification. You click, I've completed such and such activity, even though it's just purely informational, I get a notification. You sneeze, I get a notification. You clear your throat, I get a notification. So like these are all people's discussion board posts. Yeah, I have to search for the comments, which I do, but sometimes every so often one falls through the crack because with the dozens of notifications I get every day, I have to look for the specific comments that are in there. So anytime you need to contact me, just use the envelope icon, okay? Yeah, let's get into the presentation. Let's not waste any time. Click play. First of all, welcome to Creative Presentation. Like I said, for most of you, nearly all of you, this is your very first class. Occasionally, we have people who are taking it again, but I'm guessing that all of you are brand new. So welcome aboard. I'm excited to be teaching you. Hopefully, you're excited to be taking this class. This class is important because I think presentation and communication skills are important no matter what your field is. By the way, just out of interest, if you want to go ahead and type in the chat what your specific industry is, just so I can share with one another and the people who are viewing this, they'd probably like to know. But yeah, communication is important no matter what industry you're in. But also this first month course is important because it sort of gives you a taste of what you can expect from Full Sail in general. For example, discussion board activities pretty much are going to be part of just about any class you take. The platform, which hopefully you've already gotten used to, you'll be dealing with a lot. And you'll get used to just the pace of how things work here at Full Sail. I don't think this is a tremendously difficult class, but there is work to do, and a month moves pretty quickly. But I can make you the near promise Okay, I can't promise 100%, but I can come pretty close to it. Yeah, all students who keep up with activities, complete them. That means, watching the lectures, attending the lectures, completing the textbook readings, and yeah, putting forth the strongest effort into assignments and doing so following the instructions on the assignment sheets. It's pretty difficult not to pass this class if you do all that. So that's great. I mean, the ball is really in your court. You have complete control over this class. I don't think, again, it's terribly difficult to pass. But yeah, I think the biggest danger is when people fall behind. But yeah, so remember what I said. People who stay on top of things and complete activities and follow instructions tend to do pretty well. Okay, well, whoa, so far only one person has responded. Martin's in computer animation. Okay, very good. I guess I'll just have to guess what everybody else is here for. Okay, yeah, there's me. Uh, by the way, I mean, people call me Mr. Sussman. I'm perfectly fine with David. I know that as I get older, I turn 45 real soon, July 9th. So happy birthday to me. But as I get older, it's a lot more difficult to convince students to call me by my first name. And at a certain point, I guess I'll just have to accept that I don't know. I'm not young enough or hip enough to be called on a first name basis. But yeah, you can call me by my first name. There is a professionalism policy here at Full Sail. So in general, yeah, you probably do want to call instructors by, Mr. or Miss. But yeah, if they give you permission to call you by their first name, that's not an example of being unprofessional. So whatever you're comfortable with. As you can see by the quick facts, I've been teaching for over 15 years. My interests include film. I've taught introduction to film at another university. I don't have a degree in music, and that's not my area of study, but I do play piano. My real area of expertise, I guess you could say, is anything related to English, so creative writing, composition. I also teach English here at Full Sail, so some of you will see me in a couple months. If you're a campus student, that might be next month. If you're an online student, that'll be month 4. And by the way, I just want to make a really quick note that my background and interest is actually not uncommon. You'll find that your instructors, even when they're not in your specific industry, for example, your creative presentation teacher, your psychology teacher, your English teacher, yeah, we have lots of interests that cross yours. And that's not by accident. Full Sail's really committed to bringing in people who have a wide breadth of knowledge. So you will find that your English teacher or your psychology teacher is maybe an expert on comic books or television or film or music. Yeah, and I think that's one of the really cool things about this school and makes it different than any other school. You're not just being taught by, kind of stuffy, old-fashioned academics. You're taught by people who actually have a lot of the same interests that you do. Oh, some people have responded to what they're studying. Okay, Matthew's here for game design. Okay, cool. Courtney's here for graphic design. Janet's here for music business. Kevin's here for game design. Okay, so yeah, good. We have a good spread here. Game design, music, graphic design. What was I saying? Oh yeah, how my background connects. Yeah, so that's one of the really cool things about this place. And I think you're going to see that month after month. So welcome aboard. What we expect from you guys, I've already touched on it, though let me also add to be sure to channel the excitement you have. I mean, you all picked Full Sail probably because it stood out to you and you realize it's a different school. You realize that it's a nice combination of some aspects of traditional learning, like this class or English class, but also you're here to specifically study your industry, right? Some of you are probably here for the 2-year degree. Some of you might be on a different track, but you're all here because Full Sail is kind of an industry leader in these fields. And I can say with complete honesty that, yeah, people who, again, work hard, are committed, make it through the program. They have excellent rates at getting placement, at getting jobs, especially those of you who take advantage of the career services area upon graduation. So, yeah, you chose this place because probably you were excited. And be sure to channel that excitement. I've been here for 3.5 years, and I love it. I'm excited to be here. I pretty much never want to leave. You can't beat living in Florida, teaching people from all around the country and the globe. So yeah, just as I have excitement, you do too. Be sure to channel it. Also, be sure to ask questions. Okay, some students feel frustrated with the online classes, but for creative presentation, I actually think online is better. We've already had an activity, a discussion that's open where people are sharing their experiences with presentations or public speaking, and it's pretty much a universal fear that people aren't really crazy about it, right? It's actually one of people's top fears, having to speak. But this class actually, it's much, much less stressful. You're not going to be delivering a presentation in real time. You'll have the ability to prepare, design, execute a presentation on your own, and then you'll deliver your finished project. So that's really terrific, because for people who do feel uncomfortable speaking in front of an audience, you get to do it, in the comfort of your own home. You get to control things. So when you're working on the recording part of your presentation, you mess up in a certain part, fine, just re-record that section, right? You're in control. You can make sure that things are absolutely perfect before you submit your presentation. Whereas if you were taking the campus version of this class, yeah, you'd be delivering these presentations live. And even though some students don't like the fact that, in a traditional classroom, you can see the instructor, you can come right up to him or her after class and ask questions, I would actually argue that you actually have more access to the instructor if you want to take advantage of it. I have students who contact me, send me messages practically every day. Because I have no life, I I pretty much respond to questions almost immediately. Sometimes at weird times, like 3 in the morning. So yeah, you have complete access to me. Okay, pretty much 24/7. I mean, when my day is kind of over around 6, 7 p.m. Yeah, maybe I don't get back to you with your question until the following morning. But usually I'm very, very quick. We promise a 24-hour turnaround time, but usually I'm much faster than that. So yeah, what we expect from you is your energy, your effort, your excitement, and to always ask questions. Okay, especially since this is your first month, your first class. Anytime you feel confused about anything, but especially the material or some of the concepts, be sure to ask away. And what you can expect from us, yeah, I've gotten into that a little bit too. You can expect us to be committed instructors who are there for you. I already mentioned the 24-hour turnaround time for contact, right, for messages. We kind of aim for 72 hours when it comes to giving feedback on assignments. Sometimes it might take an extra day. But yeah, we try to shoot for 3 days turnaround time. That's not including weekends. But yeah, what you can expect from us is an instructor who's just as available, perhaps even more available than a traditional instructor. So please take advantage of that. Okay, let's get into some aspects of this course. One thing I'm going to mention now, and I'm going to keep mentioning throughout the month, is yeah, Full Sail is very, very serious about respecting copyright issues. And because your presentations are going to include probably visual elements, and some of you might use sound elements as well to spruce things up, you can only use permissible, allowable resources, okay? So that means that you can't have Rihanna or Beyonce or Taylor Swift playing as the cool music in the background of your presentation. That means we don't just Google whatever image we want and grab it. We actually have to make sure that whatever we use is permissible. And because one of your activities due this Sunday asks you to use some basic visuals, I'm going to show you some sources before the session ends that are great places to go to for permissible images in this case. Okay, so I'll give you some help on where you can go to so you don't get into trouble. But yeah, Full Sail takes this very seriously, and because of that, we instructors do too. You certainly don't want to get in trouble or lose points because you're grabbing material that you're not supposed to use. And actually, let me real quickly talk about what we're working toward this month. And I'm going to sound like a broken record because every go-to session, I'm going to repeat it just so we're all on the same page and we don't forget what we're working toward. We're working toward, yeah, a presentation, okay? So just one presentation. You'll first produce a draft in it. These early weeks, we're going to spend time talking more about theory. We're going to look at other people presenting and see if we can learn something by analyzing those presentations. But ultimately, we're working toward the final 2 weeks where you will produce a 3 to 5 minute presentation. Okay. And it's actually deceptively simple. You are going to imagine yourself about 2 years in the future. You're going to picture yourself as a recent Full Sail graduate, someone who's just got his or her degree in hand, and you're ready to hit the job market. And you're going to create a 3 to 5 minute presentation that's aimed at potential employers. There are a few more details. I'm not going to get into those yet because it's only week one, but that's what we're working toward. Okay. As a secondary goal, what we're going to also teach you in this class is to break bad habits in presentation making. And again, these concepts are also deceptively simple, and I'm going to repeat them every week. But yeah, a 3 to 5 minute presentation that's going to combine limited text, powerful visuals, and professional recorded voiceover. In a 3 to 5 minute form. Later on, around when we get to the first draft stage, I have some past examples that I can share with people so people can see what past students have done. But yeah, really simple, easy peasy. 3 to 5 minute presentation, and really to do well in this class, you're going to show me that you can apply the principles that we're going to learn all month. Okay, real quick word about college level writing standards. Somewhere there's a document, I don't know where it is, but it kind of tells where students should be during the first 4 months of this program. And for this class, creative presentation, there is a score given for every assignment that's for grammar and mechanics. Okay, but at this stage, the requirements are pretty basic. We want to make sure that people are writing in complete sentences, that they're using punctuation, that they're avoiding sloppy, almost text speak like conventions, like not capitalizing words that should be capitalized, right? Like proper nouns or the pronoun I, or to make sure that you're always beginning a sentence with initial capitalization. So really basic stuff like that. We want to reinforce these notions because every month instructors will expect a little bit more. But yeah, the basic ability to write in complete sentences and follow basic rules of punctuation, spelling, proofreading, etc. I'm not going to say much about this because it's pretty well explained in the professionalism activity. But yeah, professionalism is a big part of Full Sail, and you actually receive 10% of your grade for adhering to professionalism. I don't really take off professionalism points too often. I really only take them off in a couple cases. Missed work, there's a penalty for that. Anything egregious like a message to me that's completely inappropriate or a comment to a fellow student that's completely inappropriate. Things like that result in a loss of professionalism points. But yeah, most students don't have too big of a problem with this. Okay, we're going to be respectful to one another. When we communicate, we're going to try our best, whether it's a discussion board post, whether it's a message to me, certainly the work you hand in, that we're going to try to follow those basic grammatical standards that I just went over. Okay, we're going to learn to be professionals because it's something that's going to be repeated in course after course here. Now, next, there are 2 textbooks. They're both written by the same author, Nancy Duarte. One book is called Resonate. The other one is called Slideology. There's a picture of the author. Nancy Duarte is a CEO. She's also an expert in communication. So that's why we're using her books for this class. I believe you had, what was it? I think chapters 1 through 4 plus chapter 7 from Resonate to read for this week. I know it's only day 2, and some people are still making their way through the basic material. Has anybody started reading through the Resonate chapters yet? Oh, Martin makes a comment. He says he's very bad at grammar because he's studying Puerto Rico for 17 years. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Martin, the good news is, like I said, in this class, really the attention is more on, writing in complete sentences, trying your best to follow the basic rules of grammar. And future courses, there will be a bit more attention paid, especially when you get to English. Janae says that she's read through the chapters. Great. If you haven't, it's not a big deal. You just have to make sure that you start doing so and get them completed by this week. Okay, Courtney says she's halfway through chapter 7. Janet says she started reading yesterday. Okay, good. Because here, let me show the textbook real quickly. I think I have it open somewhere. There it is. Okay, it's not everybody's favorite thing to do, to read textbooks, but I think these readings are pretty easy. First of all, they're filled with lots of pictures. Actually, let me get to chapter 1. Okay, so as you can see, yeah, lots of pictures. Some interactive things you can click on and watch. And as you can see, the actual paragraphs of reading, of prose, aren't terribly long. It's usually just 2 or 3 short paragraphs per page, right? So you can make it through the assigned chapters. And please do, because even though I will highlight key concepts every week from the textbook readings, those can't entirely stand in for reading the chapters themselves. And listen, if you want to read to mostly understand things at the level of gist. Okay, we all know what that means, right? Gist, meaning that we're reading to get the most important information, the main ideas down. So yeah, I'm not telling people to skim or to skip half the chapter. No, but yeah, it's more important that you get the basic main ideas down from each chapter. And hopefully people can confirm it. Matthew says he's finishing chapter 4 and 7 tonight. I mean, Courtney, Matthew, Janae, and others. Am I right that the chapters aren't terribly difficult or long to read? While I'm waiting for that, let me go back to the presentation. So yeah, make sure that you keep up with the reading because as Janae just wrote, they're pretty short and sweet. Matthew says the same thing. They're pretty short. Yeah, if you keep up with the textbook readings, it's going to be that much easier. Also, it's really boring if every week I'm just lecturing on what the textbook says. That's really dull. I'd rather concentrate on the big picture stuff and then get into what the actual activities are asking you to do each week. Um, and it's filled with great stuff. It really is. We're going to highlight some of the key concepts today. Um, but yeah, please keep up with the readings. So yeah, real quickly, we're going to get into some of those concepts right now. The book is called Resonate. She's got a really, I think, pretty cool metaphor in chapter 1 where she explains what resonance or what to resonate means, right? Just a fancy term that refers to the frequency at which something operates or something responds to. And she gives, I think, that story about her son working on some sort of science project in which I forget how it was exactly, but he found the exact frequency which caused table salt to move and form interesting patterns. And the reason why this metaphor is interesting is because that's what we're trying to do as communicators. That's what we're trying to do through our presentations. We're trying to find that right frequency at which our audiences will respond. Okay. And I didn't mean to do that. I must have clicked on something by accident. Yeah, because you're all working in fields that are constantly changing. I mean, this has always been true, but it's even more true today in the 21st century. If you think of the world of 2016, no matter what your industry is, here we have game design people, graphic design, music production. Can any of you honestly say that your industry isn't just constantly changing? That perhaps the stuff you learn here at Full Sail will become old news by the time that you graduate? Not to say that it won't be relevant or helpful, but you'll have to keep up in your industries to be aware of changes. So yeah, this course is also a little bit about that, believe it or not. We're going to teach you some basic presentation skills that I say are deceptively easy. I mentioned earlier that part of this course is about breaking bad habits. By bad habits, I mean things like, oh, opening up a software like PowerPoint or Keynote, which is basically Mac's version of PowerPoint, and just throwing words on slides, or creating bullet points and throwing text next to those bullet points. As a fact, in one of your chapters, I can't remember if it's in Resonate or Slideology, touches on this, that this software almost encourages you to do that. You open up PowerPoint, right? You pick a template, and what does that template start asking you to do? It says, click text here. And then there are bullet points and encouraging you just to click right next to one of those bullet points and start typing away. Those are actually bad habits, and they lead to ineffective presentations. So yeah, one of the changes that you may not be aware of is that presentations really don't look like that, or they shouldn't look like that. So we're going to bring you up to speed on what a presentation should look, feel, and sound like in 2016. Okay, that pretty much is the same thing. Oops, I went too fast. Let me go back a slide. Because when we create bad presentations, we feel like this guy here trapped in his little Lego jail, right? There's nothing worse than being trapped in a bad presentation. So my next question is, who's watched or participated in a bad presentation? And if you can think back, what made that presentation ineffective? And if you can't think of a formal presentation where someone was standing up on stage, actually delivering a formal presentation, you might think about class lectures you've sat in on. You might think back to if you took a speech class. You might think back to maybe someone who spoke up during a job meeting. What were some of the characteristics that you remember that lead to ineffective presentations? Any ideas? This will also help you, by the way, when it comes to this week's discussion activity, because we're kind of touching on the same things. But what was it about presentations that sometimes made you feel like this guy here, trapped, just wanting to get out? Okay, good. Janae responded. She said, constant pausing and saying or Okay, yeah, there's something about style and delivery. I've given this lecture a million times, but because I'm not working from a script, even I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I have to say or but if I were delivering this in front of, I don't know, 100 people on stage in a formal setting, kind of like a TED talk, yeah, you better believe I'd make sure that I had a script, that I had it memorized, that I had it down, that it was professional. So sure, delivery is a big part of it. Anybody else? Janae's the only one who's responded. Characteristics of ineffective presentations. Janae adds, I meant that in a way when people are unsure of themselves or not confident. Oh, okay. There's that's kind of a different issue. I'm not sure if you mean that people are unprepared or if it's just the confidence issue. I've already responded to a few people on the discussion board where I said a big secret to solving the public speaking issue really is confidence. And the frustrating thing is I can't give that to people, or I can't teach people to flip that switch and turn the confidence light on. It just comes. Sometimes I think it comes with age. Sometimes I think it comes from experience. I wrote to someone on the board that that for me it came when I just threw caution to the wind. When I just said, you know what, I don't care. Actually, you know what, that's a bad way to put it. It's not that I don't care, but I'm not going to make that big a deal about going up and speaking in front of people. And as soon as I kind of found that confidence, that ability just to walk out there and let it happen, yeah, things got much, much easier. Micah says he can't see anyone's text. Yeah, Micah, there's a problem with the chat. I can see what everybody types, but you can't see each other's comments. But don't don't let that prevent you from responding or asking questions, or when I ask a question to answer. Okay. Some other people have chimed in, and I've lost my cursor. This happens sometimes. So let me unfreeze things for a moment. Matthew says being monotone or unenthusiastic. Okay, yeah, there's another delivery issue. And by the way, sometimes people don't even realize it. They think they're coming across as perfectly fine, but then this is the importance of feedback, to hear how other people feel about your delivery. I know that's an issue for me because I don't have the greatest speaking voice in the world. I'm also kind of quiet. People sometimes can't hear me clearly because I've been told I have a deeper voice, and when I speak too softly, it just comes across, I think, as a sort of hum. So I have to speak up. But usually in presentation situations, yeah, I found my confidence, my louder voice, my confident voice. I'm able to walk up and down. I'm able to use gestures. I'm able to use my voice in probably more powerful ways than I do privately. But that came from a lot of feedback, right? People telling me that I'm coming across either too shyly or too stiffly, or I sound too monotone. Let's see what other people have said. Martin says presenter gets lost in the slides or shows that they haven't practiced. Okay, good. Yeah. Confidence is a big thing, but yeah, preparation is too, right? And this is going to play a role with your own presentations. Okay. It's just a 3 to 5 minute presentation, but it's going to take some effort and it's going to take some thought. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but yeah, you're going to have to script things and you're going to have to deliver it professionally, because every so often a student doesn't do that and tries to wing it, and that doesn't come across very well. So yeah, preparation is super important, as Martin points out. Mike says you have to be calm, but also you have to practice. Yep, absolutely. I hope I'm saying this right. Hey there. He says he hates it when someone just reads off their notes and never takes their eyes off the paper. Okay, that's a great point too, because think of what I just said 5 minutes ago. And I know I'm asking too many questions. I'm just trying to get it caught off because now everybody's commenting, even though you can't see it. And I'm going to throw another question out there to people. Who wants to admit that they've created bad presentations exactly like what I've described? You turn on PowerPoint, you choose a template, you just start throwing words on those slides, putting them next to bullet points. Ramonica says, I have. Yeah, I have too. And believe it or not, you know what fixed it? I'm about to turn 45. It wasn't until I came to Full Sail. I was a terrible PowerPoint maker until I came here. And it was really when I arrived at Full Sail that I realized, oh, that's not how you create presentations. Presentations are actually deceptively simple. And I'm going to show some examples, just a single slide examples of what we're aiming for. But it's really simple, deceptively simple, elegantly simple. We use powerful visuals, limited text, and those act as sort of an anchor, right, to capture the audience's interest. And what's really important is what we have to say. And if you think about professional presenters, how many of them just read from their notes? Or how many of them have PowerPoint slides or keynote slides that literally have everything they're going to say on the slide? If everything's on the slide, then what do you need the presentation for, right? You could just give people handouts and say, read this. Or if you're like me, you're reading through the slide and not listening to the presenter. And then you've probably finished reading the slide before the presenter's finished saying his or her prepared segment, and you're just waiting for them to finish. That's not very interesting. So yeah, I'm going to repeat it again and again, week after week. But the concepts we're going to learn about this month, they're going to seem new. They're going to seem scary because they're going to go against probably everything you've done. But they're really deceptively simple. I don't want to miss anybody else's comments. Courtney says, I've seen bad presentations where people are unorganized. They would just shuffle through note cards and just read them like a report instead of actually trying to push or present the issue they're talking about, or just read right off their PowerPoints. Yeah, exactly. The two biggest issues I see, and these are the bad habits we're going to correct this month, are filling text with slides. Because again, if everything's on the slide, why do you need a presentation? Or the slides act like cue cards for the presenter. Right? They're there for the presenter, and that's not really how those slides should be functioning. Some other people are saying the same thing. Mike has said something similar. Richard answered the presentation question. He says he never did one except in high school, and it was bad. Kevin, I think I already admitted this. He said that he's great. Yeah, most people, I think it's not uncommon. I think one of your chapters mentioned something like, I don't know, 80 or 90% of people, that's what they do. They just open up the software. So we're going to break those bad habits. But we've touched on several important aspects, I think, of poor presentation quality. And now let's look at some examples, okay? So let's put into really, really basic terms what we're kind of talking about. Here's a quotation. Education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. Socrates. Okay, there's text on a slide, and I guess, yeah, I mean, it's not terrible, I guess. I could maybe picture a presentation opening this way, but it's just words on a slide. I mean, I guess if I had to point out something positive, at least it's not crammed with text, and it's not functioning as cue cards. It's just a simple, elegant quotation. But look what happens if we pair the quotation with the right image. Okay, so yeah, see how things change? By the way, I love that quote because I think it's communicating something pretty important, right? That education isn't about just cramming facts into your head. That education is really about sparking that interest in knowledge, because if you can spark that interest, then the person will probably develop a lifelong interest in learning. Okay, but look at this image, right? The quotation still communicates the same thing, but I think it takes on something extra because of this specific image. It reminds us that education, that spark of learning, can occur anywhere, regardless of place, regardless of socioeconomic background, regardless of tools on hand. So this is a pretty powerful image. I'm not sure what country, could be this country, is being represented. But yeah, it's pretty powerful because we can make certain assumptions based on this, right? I mean, these are people who are using whatever's available to them, even if it's just an empty space underneath an underpass, in order to spark people's interest in learning, or to give children that basic, that basic kindling that they're going to need, hopefully, if they want to, I'm guessing, maybe work their way out of whatever situation they're in. I'm going to guess that these people probably don't come from the strongest, richest background, or else they wouldn't be having school underneath an underpass. But look what happens. My main point here is not to make social comments, but to point out that as soon as we pair this quotation with a powerful image, I think it grabs the reader's attention more, the audience's attention. I had to Yeah, Janice says she agrees. Janae says it makes it pop. Yeah, good. By the way, I sometimes lose my cursor, so that's why I have to break down the presentation and restart it again. Or consider this. By the way, do people still recognize the pop culture reference that's happening here? Sometimes my movie references are dated. I should probably pick something more current. I can't give away bonus points or free points to anybody who can name the film that's being referenced here. There we go. Matthew has got it. Bill and Ted. Do people still understand that reference? There were a series of films, two, I believe. The first one was called Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It was a movie from the late 1980s about two slackers, two airheads, two morons who travel in time and meet important people from history. It featured a very, very young Keanu Reeves. Basically, picture two surfer dudes who travel through time, and they get to meet people like Socrates, but because they have no knowledge of philosophy or Greek philosophers, they call him Socrates, which is kind of a running joke throughout the movie. Okay, but here, your audience might find this charming, or they might find it humorous. They might love the pop culture reference, or maybe it's not appropriate. I just said that we're working toward a 3 to 5 minute presentation aimed at potential employers, where you're essentially going to present yourself, and we're going to teach you tips and tricks to do so in a more interesting way. So you're not just saying, hi, my name is, I was born in such and such place, right? We don't want it to just be a data dump. We can present information in more interesting ways. But maybe this image would be appropriate for your audience. Maybe it wouldn't. If you're in film, maybe it would be just fine. Maybe if your audience was either youthful or open to pop culture, they might find this kind of charming and funny, or maybe it wouldn't fit at all. But still, the basic concept here, pairing simple, limited text with powerful visuals, grabs people's attention. And here's just a more classic example. With an old painting, actually featuring Socrates, so that's kind of a natural fit here. So we can pair his quote with a painting that captures his image. But yeah, that's what we're kind of aiming for. Powerful visuals that act as an anchor with limited text for what you have to say. And I'm trying my best week after week to model this because I'm not working from a script. I find it more naturally just to speak. Even I could probably sometimes deliver things a bit better. But yeah, I'm trying to model as best I can. For example, I'm not just hitting you with slide after slide filled with text. Whatever slide there is, like, let's go to the next one. Well, that one only has words. But yeah, most of the slides I've been showing, right, there's a simple visual. Let me go back a few slides. Okay, right? Simple visual. Simple visual. Here, I love these slides the most. Even when it comes to like the font that I've chosen, put over the image, right? That simple combination can be powerful. And then what really is important is what I'm saying to you right now. And because you're not lost or you're not ignoring me and reading the huge, dense amount of text on the slides, that's what you want to do with your own audience. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the elements that are needed in a presentation. Just like a story, just like a movie, Presentations also have beginnings, middles, and ends. There's nothing more awkward than a presentation that just starts abruptly or that just stops when the speaker has run out of things to say. And one of your assignments for this Sunday is to choose 3 TED Talks and analyze them in terms of what's effective and what isn't effective. But I think you'll probably notice that in just about any TED Talk that you choose, it should have a beginning, middle, and end. So you're going to have some sort of opening move or some sort of natural introduction. You're going to have obviously a middle section of your presentation where the meat of your content is going to appear, and you're going to find a professional but also satisfying way to close the presentation. We'll talk about different techniques to do that. For example, there's the bookend technique that we begin one way and then we return to that exact same thing at the end. So let's say you begin with an anecdote, you maybe return to that same anecdote at the end, or maybe you ask your audience a question in the beginning and you return to that same question at the end and ask them to reconsider it. So that's a really cool technique, this sort of bookending, or kind of like tying up loose ends by returning to where you started. Let's see, Janet says, you just need to know the subject and what to deliver. Yeah, I agree. I can't remember what that's in response to, but it sounds right. I know I agree with it. Just as an essay has a beginning, middle, and end, your presentation will have that as well. Okay, we've already talked about effective versus ineffective presentations. Let's talk a little bit about audience, because audience is really king. You're going to hear that a lot in the textbook. You're going to hear a lot from me, but it's not just something academic. It's not just something in theory. Audience is really important. And one of the awesome things about this class is when you create your first draft of your presentation and I give feedback, sometimes students, I wouldn't say that they're disappointed because everybody wants to hear only the great stuff and not critiques. But the critiquing process, which you'll get not just from me, but from your classmates as well, is super important because it's at this stage that I'll help you see if your presentation isn't meeting your audience's needs. For example, if you're creating a 3 to 5 minute presentation aimed at potential employers, like how much personal information do you need to share? Sure, they might want to know who you are. Maybe if some of your background information is relevant, they might need to know that. But, I've had students, they tell how many brothers and sisters they have, what year they were born. And sometimes I'll have to be the mean instructor and ask, okay, but does your audience really need to know all that? So one thing that I really recommend is to look at your work. And this doesn't just apply to presentations. It applies to anything that you're working on. An essay, an article, a story. But if you can develop the ability to step outside of yourself, to look at your own work almost like you're looking at it from the perspective of a complete stranger, you can catch a lot of the things that feel off in your work. But these things tend to be invisible when we only look at things from our perspective. This can even occur at the sentence level, things that just don't read clearly. But to us, we can't see them if we're only thinking from our perspective, because in our heads, everything makes sense, right? I mean, everything makes complete sense to us. But if we can step outside of ourselves and imagine a complete stranger looking at it, that's when we can notice all the things that don't quite fit, whether it's an awkward sentence, or as I'm getting into now, or if it's something that just wouldn't work well for your audience. I'll help with that process through feedback, of course, but you can start developing those same critical skills as well. So yeah, audience is king. And there are 4 types of audience. The first type is the one that we love, the friendly audience. Then there's the apathetic. Apathetic is just a fancy word for someone who's kind of bored, could not care less one way or the other. Is just kind of, you know what apathetic is? Apathetic is a person who's sitting there slumped in his or her chair, chewing on a pen, looking at their phone. That's apathetic. Uninformed. Okay. And lastly, hostile. I hope that people haven't had too much engagement with hostile. Based on your own presentation experiences, where do you think your audiences have mostly fell? Friendly? Hostile? Somewhere in between? For me, I would say it's largely dependent on the context. So, for example, in a classroom session, I can't say that all of my students are smiling and paying complete attention, but most of them are. I lost my cursor again. So, I would say for me, let me bring up the faces again. They're kind of mixed in here. I'd say mostly friendly and a few apathetic. Kevin says that his audiences have been apathetic in the past. I would say if you've taken a speech class in high school or college, usually, yeah, your audience is somewhere here, apathetic. And actually, that contributes to the anxiety or fear that a person has, because there's no worse feeling than looking up and seeing 20 faces that just aren't paying attention, that aren't making eye contact, that are looking at their phones. And that sends you into a panic. That's when you start losing your place. That's when you lose confidence. That's when you start blushing. Um, so yeah, but I'd say it happens. But in general, I'd say that actually audiences lean more toward friendly. It's pretty rare that you're going to find a hostile audience. It could occur, but it's pretty rare. Apathetic, yeah, there are a few, but you know what? It gets better. I mean, if you think back to your high school experiences, how engaged do you think your classmates are going to be? I mean, you don't want to be in speech class. They don't want to be in speech class. It gets better. Okay. I don't think most audiences are that negative. Um, so, okay, those are the four general audience types. But even beyond this, it's important to know your audience. As a matter of fact, Nancy Duarte refers to the audience as the hero. Okay. The actual hero or the star of the presentation isn't you. Yes, you're important. Nobody's saying that you're not. But it's not all about you. Um, Presentations shouldn't be just, oh, how do I put it? Kind of like displays of bravado. Someone who gets up there brimming with confidence, but it's not real confidence. It's just a person almost strutting and showing off and being cocky and making it all about them. That's typically not very effective. Not because it's just maybe off-putting, but also it just doesn't suit the audience's needs. I mean, your audience is the person you're trying to reach. Um, Real quickly, I used to teach business writing, and one of the core assignments was the resume and cover letter project. And yeah, the biggest thing I had to teach students in that class, especially with the cover letter, is you have to tailor to your specific audience, right? Whatever employer you're trying to reach. Now, a lot of the cover letter could remain the same, but I would tell them, do some research, learn something about the company, find something that you can put in your cover letter that shows that you know this company, and you can discuss your skills in such a way that you're bringing something to them, right? They're the important people. They're the ones you're trying to reach. And although for the most part, I'm happy that students don't really fall into the problem of losing complete sight of that. Yeah, audience is not an academic or theoretical concept here. You're trying to reach them, okay? And that means putting yourself in their shoes. Janae says, I learned that the hard way. Oh, wow, I'd like to hear more about that if you want to share that in the chat. Okay, another quick thing about audience. Designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to whom it may concern. Okay, that's kind of what I was just describing in my example from business writing class and cover letters. That, yeah, anytime you send out a mass mailing, right? Have you ever gotten those like mass mail letters in the either the traditional mail or your email account? You can just tell that it's not personalized to you. Um, your presentation is going to be absolutely tailored to a specific audience. Oops, I think. Well, actually, we're going to move forward because I got to catch up. Real quick, because we're almost at the end of this thing, and then I want to get into this week's assignments. Another concept that Nancy Duarte stresses pretty powerfully is this idea that we're kind of like mentors or guides. That's our true job when we're presenting. We're taking our audience on a specific journey, a 3 to 5 minute journey in the case of this class, and we're leading them through that 3 to 5 minute story, and we're doing so in such a way that puts our audience's needs first. And by the way, in future weeks we'll talk more about these concepts. Oh gosh, if I have permission, I'm going to fly through some of the. You know what? We're going to switch gears here. Okay, I think most people are understanding the gist of what I'm talking about because I really need to get to the activities and I don't want to keep you much past an hour. Okay, so here are the two main activities we're working on this week. The first one is discussion. The discussion board's already started. So if I go in there. Okay, so Courtney's posted. Matthew has a nice long post. I've already started responding to people. And if you haven't jumped in yet, that's fine. Oh, okay, some people have. Martin, Janet. Okay, good. But be sure to read through the assignment sheet. That's not the assignment sheet. Here we go. Okay, so on page 2, you have the instructions here. You're basically answering these bullet points. It's not a terribly difficult assignment because it's all personal. So, you'll talk a little bit about your comfort level delivering presentations or speeches. You'll share an experience of a public speaking experience you remember. You'll discuss a time that you created a visual presentation and how that went. You should be trying to answer basically all the prompts here on this page. If you've never created a visual presentation before, that's fine. But I'm guessing that everyone has had a public speaking experience. So yeah, it's not terribly difficult, but be sure that you're answering these bulleted prompts on page 2. Okay. And you need to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. And you have this document here, which is called the RISE model for meaningful feedback, that in anytime you respond to a fellow classmate, you should be trying to reflect, inquire, suggest, elevate, and you get nice little examples of what that looks like and what that should not look like. So this is a really terrific handout if you want to make sure that your responses to fellow classmates are doing a good job. On the other hand, if you can create thoughtful, engaging responses to your classmates without using the RISE model, that's fine too. Okay, I just want to make sure that people aren't running to the board and just saying good job or writing a quick sentence. I'm not saying you have to write a novel. I'm not saying you have to devote your life to responding to your classmates, but I do want to see at least an attempt to foster real conversation, because when it happens, it can be really cool and the class starts humming and thriving. And when it doesn't, that's when discussion boards feel more like some mechanical duty that students have to go through, and I don't want that to happen. But yeah, you receive a grade. Here's the rubric, by the way. You should always check out or actually, I think I closed it. Ooh, I don't know why. That's awkward. Has anybody else looked at the rubric? Does yours look as bad as mine? These weird circles and missing. Janae says hers is like that too. Okay, I'm going to find a clean copy of this. But yeah, this contribution to learning community, this is basically your grade for responding to one another. And you get a whopping 30 points. But guess what? I'm not going to give 30 points if you just say good job or write a single sentence. So yeah, let's try to respond to one another with true engagement. Okay, so use that RISE model handout if you need it, and if you can create thoughtful responses on your own, that works too. Anyway, that discussion assignment is worth 5% of your grade, so it's a fairly low stake activity. Though any graded activity, even if it's worth just 5%, yeah, take advantage of that. You'd be amazed how these 5% assignments add up. So if you can nail those, they become easy points. But also due this Sunday is your first serious assignment, because it's worth 15%. This is a presentation analysis assignment, and this one I want to go through with a little bit more care, and then we'll wrap things up. So please give me about 5 minutes to go over this, because this is important. Let me close some windows. Okay, so in this assignment, you're going to watch a minimum of 3 different TED Talks. Is everybody here familiar with TED Talks? Here, let me go to the website real quickly. If you just Google TED Talks, you can get there. I think most people have heard of TED Talks today, but every so often there's a student who hasn't. So if you've never heard of them, it's not a big problem. So yeah, your first job is to go to the TED Talk website, and you can see there are over 2,000 to choose from. You'll choose 3. And that's what you're going to analyze, because we want to learn from effective presenters. And although most of these presenters won't have, actually, I can't think of a single one with like a PowerPoint or a keynote, though some do use other visuals. Still, we can learn something from them anyway, right? Their ability to communicate Their ability to stand in front of a crowd and not read off of notes or stare at slides that function as cue cards for them, as well as plenty of other techniques. So yeah, you'll choose 3 TED Talks that interest you, and you can break things down, right? So if you want to search, if you're interested in technology, entertainment, I mean, I think it's best if you choose or try to find TED Talks that are kind of match your industry, but you don't have to. But yeah, you can filter things that way. The other awesome thing about TED Talks is I think they have an enforced cutoff of around 18 minutes. So most TED Talks you find will probably be between 10 and 14 minutes. So they're not terribly long. So yeah, you'll choose 3 TED Talks to watch. And essentially you'll go through 3 steps. The first step is you'll answer these prompts. Okay. Why was the presentation moving or powerful? Why did you like it? Was it the content, or was there something else about the speaker that made it appealing? What made the information or content appealing? Uh, how did the speaker draw you in? Right? What did you get out of the presentation that you would not have experienced if you just read about it? What kind of emotions did the presenter elicit? Okay, these are like thought questions, but they're pretty important because you have to answer them. And by the way, if you do come across a presentation that you don't think is effective, you can certainly tweak these prompts so you address those issues as well. But once you've thoroughly thought about the 3 TED Talk presentations that you've chosen, your next step is to create a document for this assignment with visual elements using the questions that you just answered, okay? So these guys here. Now, this is probably the question I get most often from students is they say, well, what do you mean create a document that has visual elements? And my answer is going to be both liberating and frustrating at the same time. I am super open-minded here, okay? So a document might be literally Microsoft Word, or it might be PowerPoint, or it might be Keynote, or it might be Prezi. Is everybody familiar with Prezi? It's basically an online presentation tool uh, that makes things kind of look 3D. Technically, it's 2.5D because it's not really 3D, but it creates the illusion of 3D. So yeah, I mean, document can mean just about whatever you want it to mean. The most important thing to me is really the quality of how these prompts here are being answered. But because I don't want to see just you literally answering these questions and handing them in, yeah, I want you to play around with visuals. Okay, I want you to play around with different document forms. And at this stage, you really have. I want you to do so without penalty, largely. Okay, because at this stage, I'm not going to be grading anything based on design principles or layout or effectiveness. So the visual quality is kind of penalty free, but I want you to get used to at least playing with these things. So what does visual element mean? It might mean taking a screenshot from the TED Talk and inserting it into your document. It might be finding some other image that relates to the topic that was being discussed and putting in your presentation. Or it might mean playing with some of the visual options you have in PowerPoint or Keynote. Or even in Microsoft Word, you have these templates for like handouts and brochures. So maybe trying out one of those. I know that sounds hypocritical because earlier I talked about how we're going to break the bad habit of just choosing a template and filling in text. But yeah, for this assignment, it's largely penalty free when it comes to the document form and the visual elements being asked for. Does that make sense? Because this part is probably the thing that confuses students the most because they want firm, direct instructions like use this software, follow these, I don't know, these principles. And I'm pretty much open. So, yeah, but I think that's great. I'm honest when I say it's kind of liberating because you get to play with visuals, but you don't have to worry about the quality of them yet. Speaking of visuals, there are 2 places you should go to. I should bookmark this. I'm always typing Full Sail Connect. Do all of you, even though it's your first month here, know how to get here to Full Sail Connect? Right? You sign in. And once you're in on the main page, if you go to the Full Sail Library, you have to sign in again. Okay, you can search for it under organizations or just scroll down to the left. And there's library. And if you click on research databases, you have the AP images collection. These images are allowable, okay? This is stuff from the Associated Press. So mostly the images you're going to see are the same images you'll see, yeah, in newspapers, okay? Probably, I mean, you could do a search for your TED Talk presenter. And for example, I watched one by someone named Susan Cain. I'm not sure if she'll trigger anything. Doesn't look like it. I'm getting Matt Cain from the San Francisco Giants, not Susan Cain. TED Talk. You know, I'm also going to try to model an assignment for next week that we're going to do. And there's this TED Talk by this guy named Apollo Robbins. He's got a pretty interesting TED Talk. Oh, wow. He doesn't have a picture either. Tim Robbins comes up. Okay, but here's the important thing. For AP images, it's probably more useful when you're looking for a general image that communicates the theme of whatever your topic is. So let's say we have some video game people here. So if we type in video games, right? Maybe there's an image here that we think will fit our presentation. You'll have to scroll through things pretty carefully. You know, who knows? Maybe this retro image of a kid playing an arcade game. Here's the important thing. Whatever image, if you do find an image through AP images that you like, just make sure that you have this number appear next to the image. That tells me it comes from AP images, and technically you're giving credit for it, okay? Because I need to know where your images come from. Another good trick is just sometimes if you type in something like, I don't know, PlayStation, then I bet we get some, like here's, well, that's not the greatest picture. Oh, here's one, right? So imagine you found a TED Talk from some video game designer, and maybe you include this image to spruce things up, right? So as long as you grab this number, you're safe. The other place I want to plug real quickly is called compfight.com. And Compfight is a Flickr search tool. AP Images, by the way, AP Images is also great for when you're looking for people who are in the news. I've gone away from the page, but if I did a search for Mark Zuckerberg or Taylor Swift, like there would have been a gazillion photos because they're in the news all the time. Compfight.com is better when you're looking for those general type images. For example, let's say I'm doing a presentation on education and I want a picture of a classroom. I just do a search. By the way, anything above the dotted line in compfight.com is just a plug for another site where you'll have to pay money. You should never have to pay money. So look below the dotted line because everything is free. Technically, at the left here, you should be clicking on commercial. Remember, this video is recorded, so if you forget about some of this information, you can always just watch the video and skip to this part of the lecture. I choose commercial instead of Creative Commons because technically Full Sail is a for-profit university, and it's a little bit difficult to explain, but because Full Sail is a commercial venture like Coca-Cola or Sony or McDonald's, technically we should be choosing images that are okay to be used for commercial means. Right. So, okay. So Classroom resulted in lots of these images, and I'm not going to go through this carefully, but yeah, you can choose an image. So let's say I like this. I don't know, this one. Right. And that's what we want, by the way, some rights reserved, because if it's all rights reserved, we can't use it. And then we just have to click on, I think, yeah, download whatever size we want, and we can put it in our presentation. Micah says, do you want an extra document with the picture codes? No, I think the simplest thing to do is just, if it's an AP image, just put that image right next to the picture, right? If you're using PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, you can easily just put it in there. If you grab something from compfight.com, it's a little bit complicated, but I don't need all the HTML, but I think most people know how to spot the URL, which is this guy here. So just copying that is enough for me. Okay, does that make sense? Or just let me know it comes from compfight.com. In other classes, you'll learn more specific means for citing images. For this class, I just want to make sure I know where it comes from. Okay. And lastly, and then I swear I'll let you go. So yeah, you're using your answers to these questions here to prepare a document that has some sort of visual element. And then you also have to make sure that your assignment includes step 3, which is you're going to conclude with your sort of own top 10 list, your kind of 10 takeaways. Now that you've watched 3 professional presenters, what are the 10 things you would list as the qualities, techniques, or skills that make up effective presentations? Okay, so that's not a list of 10 per TED Talk. I sometimes see that and then I say, oh, poor guy or poor gal, you didn't have to come up with 30 things. No, now that you've watched all 3, what are your 10 takeaways? Okay, what are 10 things you learned about effective presentations from watching those 3? Now I'm going to open up things to questions. Okay, I actually had a few more slides, but questions. Anything that we've gone over, concept-wise, material from the reading, about the class in general, about this week's activities. I'm sorry, I think I got a bit bogged down in the middle there. Next time I'll share fewer personal stories. But yeah, I wanted to get to the activities and describe and explain what was expected. So do we have any questions? If you do, you can raise your hand if you're brave and want to speak out loud. I shouldn't say brave because there's nothing particularly challenging about speaking out loud. Some classes I get lots of students who do it and other times not. Or you can use a chat. And if you're completely okay with what we've went over, you don't have any questions, everything's been crystal clear, you are allowed to leave and go enjoy the rest of your night. And thank you so much for attending. I'm going to hang around a little bit and answer questions like Matthew just asked. So I'm doing 3 analyses, 1 for each TED Talk. Yes, that's an important thing too, because I do see, and I guess the confusion is kind of understandable, though it is explained pretty clearly in the instructions, I think. But yeah, sometimes I'll get students hand in just 1 TED Talk. And I say, where are the other 2 analyses? But yeah, you're going to repeat these. You're basically going to answer these questions for each of those 3 different presentations. Okay. And it's not that long. I mean, that sounds like it's difficult, but really the longest part will be watching the 3 videos. That might take 45 minutes out of your time. And you'll see it's not terribly difficult to thoughtfully answer these questions and put it in document form. All right. And again, you're completely open-minded here. You want to use Prezi, PowerPoint, Keynote, Microsoft Word, some other document, that's fine. Visual elements means a screenshot from the presentation, the TED Talk itself, using CompFighter AP images to find a relevant image, or just using the different visual tools you have within certain programs to maybe spruce things up. I just want to get people playing with visual elements. Janae says, so that means answer the questions for all 3 separately, or am I comparing them? Yeah, mostly separately. I mean, you certainly won't get points taken off if naturally you make a comment here or there, comparing one against the other. But basically, you're doing them separately. It's 3 separate analyses, but they're being contained in a single document. Okay. You're welcome. Remember that even though you can't see each other's questions, I'm reading them out loud. So I know that's frustrating because it would be so much more useful if people could see each other's comments. But my new MacBook, I hope, takes care of this. Other questions or comments? I am going to go ahead and stop the recording because for people who are watching this now, it will be a bit dull to keep watching so much empty space. Oh, Mike has a question. Okay, I'll keep the recording going because these questions are actually important to people who watch the video after the fact, because a lot of times they might have the same questions. So Micah, you can go ahead and type away. Janae says, little off topic, but this is my first time using Mac. Are there any sites for downloading Word and PowerPoint? Ooh, that's a good question. There's an online version of Microsoft Word called OneDrive. If you just type in onedrive.com, you'll get there. This is kind of like Microsoft's version of Google Docs or other online tools, right? So people who don't have Microsoft Word can do so online. If you're talking, Janae, about your Mac, are you a campus student? Do you have a Mac through Full Sail already? because I believe Full Sail students, when they get their Mac, the online students have to wait until month 4. So you're going to have to sit on your hands for a while, folks. I know that's frustrating because MacBooks are awesome. But I believe when you get your Mac, it won't come with Microsoft Word installed, but students get a specific code so they can download the program. At least that's what I thought. Janae says, yes, you got it today. I would contact FSO support, maybe. I'm going to go ahead and type that number in the chat for everybody. And I'm going to say it out loud for people watching. It's 877-437-6349. I'll repeat that for people watching. 877-437-6349. Yeah, Janae, I mean, maybe things have changed, or maybe I'm misremembering things, but I believe students get Microsoft Word. I think you have to download it though, and where you do that, but I'm not sure. But I thought students got an email containing instructions on how to go and download Microsoft Word. Micah says the activity. Sorry, Micah, I ignored your question. Says something is due at 11:59 tonight. Really? Okay, let's take a look. What is tonight? Tonight is the 20-something. 28th. Okay, so what's due tonight? I don't know. Is anybody know what Mike might be referring to? The 28th is today. I don't see any dates that end. Stuff due July 3rd. This is all introductory stuff. Due July 3rd, which is a Sunday. The first 2 graded assignments are due this Sunday as the 3rd. So yeah, Mike, I'm not sure why you're getting an alert that's saying something is due at 11:59 tonight. Oh, Kevin says it's Resonate. Resonate is triggering, or is it in the description? Is that what I'm missing? That it's asking people to have that completed by tonight? Janae says that she thinks he means the very top of the time zone. Yeah, either I'm missing things completely and not understanding, or Martin says when you log into your student email, it will prompt you a notification to download Office 365 free for students. Okay, so there's your answer to that, Janae. I'm going to copy and paste Martin's comment. Okay, that's not from me, that's from Martin. So there's your question there. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So online people, or people are watching this video after the fact online, I'm stopping the recording now.